And we continue at 2:05 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wags in Culver City.
John, we have the latest numbers from the Palisades fire, as now we are looking at 15,000 acres, over 1,000 structures destroyed, over 13,000 structures threatened, 0% containment. The Eaton fire over in Pasadena is at 10,600 acres. Several structures have been destroyed. There have been 2 civilian fatalities. The Hearst fire in Sylmar is at 505 acres. I don't know of any structure destruction there just yet. 0% containment. Woodley fire, 0% containment. There's that Freddie fire up in Malibu. It is someone just emailed us. There's a fire in Acton. There's fires all over the place, Johnny.
Somebody called Johnny Cash. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a member of the California State Assembly who knows a lot about fires. He represents Paradise, California, which is the town that burnt down in a fire some years ago with the town's residents in the town while it burned. He's the Assembly Republican leader. You can follow him on X at J_Gallagher AD3. Assembly Leader James Gallagher, welcome.
John, good to be back with you.
Assemblyman, I'll tell you this. I don't understand how we can be in the state where we experienced everything we experienced in the Camp Fire, in the Paradise Fire, in any number of fires that we all lived through. You closer to some of those fires than us down here in Southern California. And we still don't seem to learn the lessons of what we need to learn to keep people safe, to prevent structures from burning down, to protect the lives of animals and wildlife and plants and those sorts of things. You look at what's going on right now, what people are living through here in Southern California, where in Pacific Palisades, according to Rick Caruso and residents whose homes burned down, there was no water in the fire hydrants. That's what happened in Lahaina, where people lost their lives. It was a very unfortunate situation where any number of homes and structures burned down in that fire. How do you create a situation where there's no water in the fire hydrant? The mayor was on a diplomatic mission to Ghana. She was warned days ago that the winds were whipping all through Los Angeles. We're in extreme fire risk. And she decided to stay in Africa as opposed to getting on a plane and coming home. The governor of California immediately politicized the fires and started blaming Donald Trump, who hasn't even taken office yet. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. First I will say my heart goes out to people who I know what they've gone through because we saw it in Paradise, the terror of going through a fire and, narrowly escaping the flames, many who didn't, and losing everything in a fire is, everything that people go through, and that is it's a terrible thing. And so, certainly my thoughts and prayers are with them. But yeah, there's some serious mismanagement that I think needs to be looked into in the aftermath of this. And, people like myself have been saying it for a long time that we have to get on top of vegetation management in this state. And this is really nothing new. We have always been a state that faces fire and flood. We have dry conditions. And all the more reason that we need to be doing the vital work that we used to do actually in earnest, in our forested and wildlands, doing the vegetation management that's needed to prevent catastrophic wildfire. And the fact of the matter is right now, we're 80% down where we were in 2021, when we made some significant investments in the aftermath of the Camp Fire or Carr Fire. We've backed away from that. In the last budget, drastically reduced that funding. Gavin Newsom, was supportive of all that. That was in his budget to reduce the funding. And unfortunately, here we are again.
Let's go back to no water in the fire hydrants. California obviously is a state that goes through droughts. We are a state that is a desert throughout much of our land that we occupy. In 2014, due to the drought, the extreme drought that was going on in California, we decided to place a water bond on the ballot. Originally, the bond was $11 billion. It was pared down to $7 billion. But that bond was very similar to the infrastructure bill in Washington in the sense that it was just a vehicle for a lot of pork that really didn't have a lot to do with water. Then Assembly Speaker Karen Bass put money into the bond for a park in Los Angeles. There was $250 million in there as a bailout to Warren Buffett, a man who is a billionaire. And you look at the elements of that bond that were supposed to conserve water or keep water in reservoirs so that we would have it when we need it. And it gets bogged down in all of these bureaucratic institutions where you need a permit for this, you need approval for that, you need to go through this layer, you need to go through that layer. And you spend your entire life going through this administrative maze, and we don't end up with any reservoirs at the end. It's been 11 years since we passed that. We had torrential floods in Northern California 2 years ago. How do we not have more water than we know what to do with?
It's all that and so much more, John. We passed that bond. We have not built a single water storage project since the bond passed. Sites Reservoir, again, up in my area, would bring online 1.5 million acres of new water. It's been studied for decades. We have the money to do it, and under Gavin Newsom's administration, it still hasn't been built. And it's all the bureaucracy, it's the red tape, it's making you walk through environmental, impact reports to clear brush around communities that have high fire threat. I have one community, Berry Creek, that burned down in the 2020 complex fire. They were set to do the work, and they were told, no, you have to wait another 18 months to do an environmental impact report. That community burned down. These are the kinds of problems that we face. Now, Gavin Newsom, the guy who apparently is talking about how we shouldn't politicize things, he showed up after that fire in 2020 in my district. And before the smoke had cleared, he showed up there with Richard Bloom from Beverly Hills. And he announced that the problem is climate change, and the solution is that we need to ban gas-powered vehicles. That's what he did with my fire, with my people's lives, with my people's property, used as the backdrop. So this guy's the last guy who should be talking about any of that stuff. And the frustrating thing is we know what needs to be done. We need to get on top of our land management, vegetation management, and water management in this state. That is clearly and there's nothing wrong with pointing those things out, over and over again, that these are the real solutions. It's not the fact that you drive a car. It's the fact that we have bad governance and bad management in this state, and we need to get on top of it.
You and I have had the conversation any number of times about Gavin Newsom being an absentee landlord. He's termed out. He's a lame duck. He wants to be president of the United States. And everything that he does, everything that he says is through the prism of what would give him the best position to run for president. Certainly, the fires that we're experiencing right now in California are no different. Given the fact that he is an absentee landlord and is focused on abortion and Donald Trump and federal issues that don't really have a lot to do with California state government, if he were to be engaged and, let's say, lean on these people to fast track these projects, get these projects through so that California could store some water and we could have water, could he move the needle, or does he really have no impact on that?
Yeah, no, I think a determined governor could certainly move the ball on those things, and could weigh in on all the agencies who end up having, the bureaucrats that hold all these things up. If he was actually paying attention and governing, I think there was a real possibility to do that. He doesn't do that because it requires him standing up to environmental special interests that, help bankroll him and that, I think he's expecting will help him run for president. And so, that's the real story. The bottom line is he hasn't done it. We know that. He has been absent. And look, just talk about the funding, man. This is a guy who said, let's expand Medi-Cal to illegal immigrants to the tune of $4 billion a year. We haven't even come anywhere close to spending that kind of money on, forestry management, on, fuel reduction. And we've had fire after fire after fire, right? I think he's shown where his priority is. He's proposing to spend $25 million on government lawyers to sue Donald Trump, who hasn't even taken office yet, right? But not on vital infrastructure that we need and rely upon every day. These are the frustrating things. And, we need a governor who actually cares about California and its future.
We're speaking with Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher, representing California's 3rd District. Assemblyman, a number of people who live in the areas that have been impacted by this fire are customers of the California Fair Plan, which, of course, is the insurance policy that you buy if no one else will sell you one. It's very expensive. They don't pay much out on claims, but it is the policy of last resort. And if your bank requires you to have a policy and no one will sell one to you, it's the only option that you have. The woman that runs the California Fair Plan went before the California legislature not long ago and said that they are one fire away from being bankrupt. That if there was another major fire in the state of California, they would be insolvent and they would lose the ability to pay out on the claims that are owed to homeowners. This fire is the largest fire in the history of Los Angeles County. It happened in a densely populated area. One of the fires, we're talking about the Pacific Palisades fire, but there are other fires all throughout the county. This is the high rent district. Those homes are worth a fortune, and it is going to cost billions and billions and billions of dollars to rebuild those homes, rebuild those businesses, rebuild the infrastructure. We reached out to the California Insurance Commissioner, Ricardo Lara, to see if he could give any advice to these homeowners who are scared to death that they're not going to be paid out on their policies. He's not returning anyone's phone calls. Nobody knows what the hell is going to happen to their homes if the California Fair Plan will be around next week, and he's not returning anyone's calls. Do you know anything about what's going to happen next?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought this issue up because this is yet another terrible consequence, of this fire is going to be the collapse of the Fair Plan, it appears. Because my understanding is that, many of these homes in this area were on the Fair Plan. And you are right that, the head of the Fair Plan announced, to the legislature that we're one fire away, and I think we just had it. And what is going to happen, here's what happens. Fair is essentially backed up by insurance companies that do business in California. And so if it runs out of money, they will all be, assessed by the Fair Plan for monies to make up the difference and pay into the fund. So all these companies are going to get hit with that. We already know we have, very precarious insurance markets in California as it is. Will companies pay in as they're required to do? If they do, I think you can, almost surely count premiums going up even more, and they already have skyrocketed for Californians. So this is going to be an insurance disaster, no matter how you put it.
I know that Ricardo Lara is a constitutionally elected statewide official, and he's not appointed by the governor. He's not appointed by the speaker. He's not appointed by anyone. He works for the people of California. But I would imagine if you're the insurance commissioner, this is your umbrella that's on fire right now. This is when you should be engaged. This is when you should be out there. And he's missing.
No, indeed. Now more than ever, we need to be out there talking to folks. And this, a lot of people, as you know, I've been there. in the aftermath of a fire, lots of questions about what's covered. What do you need to do to ensure that you can get your personal belongings, for example, covered in addition to your house and all of those things. It's a long road from here, and all the more reason that those tasked with, helping the people should be out there and should be much more out front, talking about how we can go forward from here. We're going to have really strong conversations here in the legislature in earnest on what we do about the FAIR Plan, insurance. We should have been doing it for many years, but unfortunately it's been, tossed to the side by the Democratic supermajority. Hasn't been something they've been, really interested in, or at least by their actions, that's what they've shown. And so, look, a lot is going to come out of this, and none of it good. And but nonetheless, it's time to start governing, and it's time to start leading, for the people of California.
State Senator Brian Dahle told us that one of his constituents had an issue where they needed something from the California Department of Insurance. They reached out. They couldn't get a call returned. His office reached out on their behalf. They couldn't get a call returned. Apparently, Democratic members of Congress, including John Garamendi, who's a former insurance commissioner himself, experienced the same thing. If you have a constituent that has a problem with that department and you try to reach out, will he return your calls?
Well, I haven't had to reach out to him a whole lot myself, but I would certainly hope so. But I've heard those same stories of people having a really hard time getting the responsiveness, out of this Department of Insurance.
Do you think that the Democratic majority in Sacramento and Gavin Newsom understand what a crisis we're in right now with the FAIR Plan and the insurance market in California? Are they blowing up everyone's phones with text messages? What are we going to do about this? A special session, something along those lines? Or are they just ignoring it?
I have not yet seen that. But look, I think it's, like I said, that it's going to quickly become, very apparent and very real to everybody, if the FAIR Plan goes under. And I think it's very likely that's going to happen in the aftermath of this fire. And again, the work needs to be, begun in earnest. And I think a lot of people already know what the result's going to be. It's going to be, massive assessments against insurers who do business in California. Their response, are they going to pay it, or is there going to be lawsuits? But I think no matter what, we're going to see, massive increases in premiums, and a big upset to the insurance market that, again, is already in a pretty precarious position as it is.
Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher. You can get him on X at J_Gallagher AD3. Assembly Leader Gallagher, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you, John.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydontlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydontlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to go back and listen to an episode from last year or the year before that, that's easy to do.
Oh, boy. If you think this is a disaster, go back to our COVID shows.
I have no idea.
Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes, do a Google on the YouTube, or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store, the Android Store. It's the easiest way listening live to this radio station, and download all the podcasts. And they're easy to do. Anybody could download these podcasts, even Babs. You know how to do it, right?
I have tech issues.
Okay, she's brain dead, but you could do it, I swear.
Let's go to Ben in Beverly Hills. Ben, hello.
Hey, great show. You've created a community for our Southern California and the whole state. It's one of the only places you can hear citizens give their own ideas. You can't do that in the LA Times anymore. So if you ask ChatGPT or any AI model what's going to happen if the state stands by, because I heard Laura, his interview was essentially him repeating problems with no real serious solution or attitude. It's going to be one of two outcomes. We're either going to be burnt out in major metropolitan areas, or the insurance industry is going to rightfully leave before they lose their rear ends. So we have no leadership. And I think it's time to actually start threatening to dissolve the Constitution and create one that makes it easier to start a business, own a home, buy property, buy, sell, trade, exist without being taxed out of our brains. What's going to happen initially is people are going to lose their homes. We're seeing that happen in the Lake Arrowhead and the high fire risk areas. And what should the insurance companies do? Sit around and go bankrupt? So we really need leadership. Gavin Newsom is a complete failure. So I'm going to be the first to ask for him to resign and to demand that Laura resign now. So I just want to end it on that. And I want to invite every other citizen who values property ownership, and existence to get these losers out. I believe this fire could have been prevented with proactive pre-fire drops, with more vigilance, with a real fire Air Force that has maybe a fleet of 10, 20, 30, or maybe 100 747s chock full of water, ready to take off at any moment in all the high fire areas. So I'm starting a movement, to end wildfires, to use high technology, to use everything from blimps to drones to robots to autonomous tankers. Well, we've got this technology on the warfront. I'm actually in the market for one. I want to have it maybe about as big as SoFi Stadium, so I can have a little luxury hotel up there, maybe a little retirement place, and I can watch.
Do you need a number for a good blimp dealer?
I can watch the fires burn everything below. Yeah, I would like a new blimp deal. I want to buy a new one, not an old German one, right?
Well, then I'd call Goodyear and not Michelin.
But seriously, I really believe that if we don't meet global warming with something that does face the drought that dries out our forests and creates this incredibly dry air, we're going to die even if the insurance companies don't leave. So we need people to actually step up and not just point fingers at industry, like he's pointing fingers at the oil industry for protecting its stockholders. It's like Gavin Newsom is battling against capitalism while he's taking bribes from capitalism. So,
all right. Thank you for the call, sir.
Ben, it looks like you can get a blimp now for about $100,000.
Is that what they're charging?
For a decent one. I mean, if you want a really nice one, they can be up to $2 million.
Where would you buy that? Cal Worthington?
Hey, if you're a blimp dealer and you want to advertise to the obvious market of KBC listeners that want to buy blimps, call our sales department. We have available inventory right now.
I know you can get your lunch at Blimpies. Let's go to Brad in Brea. Brad, hello.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Great show. This is maddening. It's so insane to listen to the congressman that just came on, just said so many things that make a ton of sense, that are just common sense for what are we, the sixth largest economy in the world, but we have a third world government that just squanders our money away, does whatever they want, gets away with it. The media is complicit. They don't do anything about it. Our governor's in bed with PP&G and God knows who else.
Also PG&E.
Oh, that's what I meant. Thanks, Randy. And it's insane. I remember calling Larry Elder's show 10 years ago talking about the same subject. We've got wildfires almost every year, and it's insane. You never see wildfires in a paper company's forest or privately owned forest because they manage them. And I said, what if we got the western states together, 10 states together, and those Canadian super scoopers or whatever they are that work really, really good. They're fast. They carry a lot of water. They can fly in pretty bad weather. Get a fleet of 10 of them. I said this 10 years ago. Get a fleet of 10 of them, and every state pitches in. You keep them in Nevada somewhere. Something like this pops up, you can get a handle of it real quick. But, that's addressing when fires get out of hand. Our government is the problem, and it's so maddening because we know it's fall coming after the fires. This winter, we're going to have mudslides, and I don't want to use Gavin's A word, but he needs to be held responsible for this because I won't do it to you, Randy. I'm not going to use the A word, but accountability. You're killing me, Smalls. It's disgusting, and they all need to be fired. Everybody needs to be fired, and I heard somebody else say it. Maybe it was the congressman. It was like New York with Rudy Giuliani. I guess it hasn't gotten bad enough yet, and maybe this pushes people over the edge to vote differently because that's what needs to happen.
All right, thank you for the call, sir. Now, Randy, if the state of California suddenly becomes in the market for airplanes, we could always just wait for Spirit Airlines to go under and buy those planes.
That's happening any minute now.
But here's the question. If we did that, would we charge the flame retardant fees? And would there be fistfights at the departures gate?
Well, of course. It's Spirit.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Yes, I am. We got a ton of emails here. Let's read one from Charles, who says, I bet all the Northern California politicians' vineyards fire hydrants have available water. There's no shortage of available water for the almond growers. I'm pretty sure all the farmland in Northern California uses 90% of California's water. Then what happens? They force us to cut back because of droughts. And then after we catch up with rainfall, they raise our water bills because we're not using as much water when we cut back during the drought. So they have a shortage of money only in California.
The only constant seems to be that we pay more and get less.
Yep.
It's the John Phillips Show on Talk Radio 790 KABC.